generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we got our latest movie discussion. We went and saw the Marsh King's Daughter. Honestly, we didn't know a thing about it. What I saw was that Daisy Ridley had a new movie coming out, and I think it's super cool to see, where do these actors and actresses end up after they're in big franchises like Star Wars. And so, what other cool things has she done? And so we went to go see The Marsh King's Daughter. When I bought tickets, we were like the only people, but once we actually got there, it was a full house. So this movie probably will be pretty popular this weekend.
A full house for a very small theater.
Yeah, but still lots of people nonetheless. It was way more than 10. But we had no idea that this was a book. We found that out. We'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, this is a movie that's based off of a book. Let's see. We saw the preview, but honestly, I didn't really understand much from the preview aside from there's this father-daughter tension, and that eventually Daisy Ridley's character was gonna seek out taking care of some old history with the dad. What that was, we didn't really know. But we're going to go ahead and give you some of our thoughts that are non-spoiler, and then also give it a rating here. So right before we get into the discussion, we want to put a small little PSA out there, public service announcement, that not everybody knows that this was a book. Hence, we didn't know it was a book. And Sarah had the pleasure to have a group of women next to her that would just continuously talk about the book and what happens in it, so that we would know exactly what happens next. They were talking so loud that we knew what was going to come. So there was hardly any surprise. And so if you're one of those people that read the book, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the movie theater is not the place to talk about the book. Talk about it after you see the movie, when the credits roll, and then you can compare and contrast. Don't ruin it for others. That's the worst thing possible. So we just want to get that out of the way, because it was super annoying. Because it wasn't just, it wasn't just the people next to Sarah that were talking. There was people talking all over the movie theater. And I half wonder if that's what the majority of it was, oh my God, this is going to happen because it happened in the book. Be quiet. But now we digress, and we can talk about some of our thoughts. I would say I think the best part of the movie, again, without talking about spoilers, is that from the trailer we know that there's a tension between Daisy Ridley's character and the father figure. And so going into this movie, and the synopsis too, that told us what to expect, I was expecting to see the dad to be this tension to be there right away. And I thought what was kind of interesting is that you really don't know, if you haven't read the book, you don't really know what's going on really the whole time. There's some perspective things that I'll probably talk about more in spoilers that really kept me kind of is this real? Is this going on? There's a couple of things that happened in the movie where we're led to believe one thing, but really something else is going on. And so because I didn't really have any structure, I was pulled in a little bit more. I will say though, I kind of felt that some of the pacing was a little slow too. Like it started off pretty decent, when we're learning about Daisy Ridley's character in the younger years, so not quite Daisy's character yet. That stuff seemed to kind of set the tone, but it seemed like we kind of slowed down for the next 30 minutes when we're actually learning about I want to start referencing her by her name instead. Helena. So we start learning about Helena's modern present day family that she has going on, and the past that she left behind seems to still be affecting her. And so I felt like the movie kept me kind of guessing what was going on. So I would say overall I liked it. Aside from the couple of slow parts here and there, but overall good stuff. And I hadn't seen a movie yet before where Daisy Ridley actually uses an American accent, and it was weird for like 2 seconds, and then I bought into it the rest of the way. It didn't seem off or odd. She did a really good job with it, and I think she did a really good job in this movie in general too. Sarah, what were your thoughts on the movie?
Overall, I liked it. Minus the ladies next to me calling the shots before things happened. That drove me nuts. So it's a little hard to describe how much I liked some of the surprising tension moments in the film, because that surprise element was kind of missing for me, even though I think the average viewer would be surprised at some of those moments, if that makes any sense. There were some slow spots, but more so, one thing that I liked was they really made you feel for Helena's character. Like I liked that we got to see her backstory of like when she was a kid, and they did a really good job of making you feel how she felt and seeing the world through her eyes. And then as an adult and how that lifestyle is affecting her being in the modern world.
I think especially because us as the audience kind of felt like we were that character for a lot of these different points of views, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but that's one thing that I really liked. I feel like they did a really good job with that. One thing that I wish they would have done different to kind of add to maybe some of the suspense or just to give a different perspective is that I feel like, and maybe this would have ruined the perspective of Helena, but I feel like there were parts in the movie where maybe we could have seen things from her dad or Jacob's point of view, and then that might have added to some of it. Like trying to think of how to describe it without using spoiler mentions. But I guess let's just say like I think I read in the synopsis, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because I think I saw it in the synopsis of him breaking out of jail, right? So there's quite a bit of that I think we could have seen more from his side, that would have added to kind of some of the believability of how things happened after that. I'm sorry if that's kind of vague, but that's the best I can do to describe that without just straight up spoiling it.
You probably get that from the trailer too, to set it up.
I don't remember the trailer. I'm sorry.
I don't either, but I feel like to understand, what the movie's about, that's kind of a key thing to have in there. But my guess, so like me and maybe Sarah, I went into this movie, because there was an actress from Star Wars, and turns out there's an actor as well. I didn't really pick up on this until we were two-thirds of the way through the movie, but Ben Mendelsohn, he plays director Krennic in Rogue One, and so he's in this movie too. He plays the dad, and so it was kind of cool to get a 2-for-1 special with the Star Wars actors and actresses in this film. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, I feel like there's going to be like 2 groups that are going to go see this movie. One, people like us that want to see these actors and actresses, or 2, for the majority of the people that have read the book, and then maybe a very small portion where they were like, oh, that trailer looks pretty good, I'm gonna go see it. Don't know who these people are, but I want to see it. I think that's going to be the minority in this viewing. So I think it's going to be interesting to see all the different perspectives that come out of it, because I know how we feel about the movie, but usually when you read the book, people are like, oh, the book did this better, and then we really don't get that. Well, maybe Sarah got that backstory a couple of times because of the people next to her, but ultimately,
it seemed like there was only one scene that they were surprised of and mentioned that it didn't match the book, but it was a very short, small scene. So I don't think it strays too far from the book based on the people next to me and their interpretation of things.
Gotcha. Well, I think we're doing enough beating around the bush. Let's go ahead and give a rating so we can start talking about the movie. Myself, I would give the Marsh King's Daughter. I was coming out of the theater, I was at one number, but after letting it marinate a little bit, I think I'm at a 7 out of 10. I think it's definitely above average. It's a good film. But the pacing issues, like I said, kind of pulled me out. And I would say there wasn't a whole lot of like shocker factor moments aside from, kind of wondering what's really going on during the film. So enjoyable. But I like I said, I think there was a couple of instances where I was pulled out. So, Sarah, what did you think?
I actually was right at a 7 also.
I was a 6 coming out of the theater, but I went up to a 7.
I liked the movie in terms of, why I'm at a 7 and not like a 10, right? Aside from the nosy Nellies trying to ruin things next to me, trying to take that out of it. In case you can't tell, I'm still very salty about it.
I would be too. I mean, like, I still remember when we went to go see Star Wars and someone walked out of the theater and said a spoiler. Like, that drove me nuts. And I'm not saying, a spoiler for this movie is equivalent to a Star Wars one, but, it's like, come on. You're not the only people in this theater. Shut your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. But so Marsh King's Daughter, MS7, there's some believability issues that I had with how the dad was trying to track or antagonize or mess with Helena when she's an adult. I understand that he's like, a tracker and all that stuff, but there's some things that she believes it because she knows what he's capable of, but I didn't quite believe it as the viewer. Some random things that happened that it didn't quite click for me. I just had to take it for what it was and just move on from it in order to enjoy the film. And so I feel like seeing some things from his perspective would have helped quite a bit with that. My guess as to why they didn't do that is I'm assuming the book is just from her perspective and only what she sees and knows. However, to me, that's a writing flaw then, that something's not believable to me as the audience. So if they had fixed that or tweaked that a little bit, I think I would have rated it higher, but I'm at a 7.
I think we have different perspectives on that, but I'll elaborate a little bit more here when we get to the spoilers. So that is our ratings. We both gave it a 7. Almost was different, but mine went up a little bit. So if you don't want spoilers, this is your time to click away. But we're going to jump into spoilers. So you just got done talking about, things about his perspective. I kind of felt like we didn't really have to have it like in our face explained because, there throughout the whole movie, we're seeing him teach her how to be an outdoors person, to the point where it's like you don't need society. Like there's a point in this film, I think, where she's shocked to see electricity because she grew up in a cabin in the woods, and then everything she knew was like the olden days where you had to go out every day to go get your meat, you had to use sticks to make your fire, so on and so forth. So I had the idea of his character that he is basically somebody maybe that grew up in the normal society and just was tired of, the politics and the people and the world, and he just wanted to be out on his own with his family. And as we learn from the movie, he kidnaps somebody and then basically brainwashes them in a way to uh, stay with him. And then they have a kid, and then they raise the kid, which is Helena. And I just kind of gathered that, he was this like super well experienced outdoorsman that just loved the outdoors. And so and then obviously he has some issues too with being controlling and stuff. So I was talking about in the this non-spoiler section that I couldn't really tell how to feel about the father-daughter relationship, because I knew from the stuff before I went into the film that there was tension, but in the beginning of the film we're seeing that the dad seems to be an awesome dad. Like, he's taking his daughter out, teaching her how to live off the land in the woods. He's not seeming to be like a rude guy or anything like that. And so it was kind of like, okay, when does he snap, kind of a thing. And so I kept like waiting for that moment to happen. But I guess let's talk about the movie. That way we can, get that out of the way. So, this movie starts off with Helena as a little girl, living with her dad and her mom out in the middle of the woods in a cabin. And like I said, her dad is teaching Helena how to live off the land. Something seems a little off with the mom. She seems kind of to herself. She likes to give Helena extra chores if she doesn't listen to her. But ultimately what we get to learn a lot about is that father-daughter relationship being very, very good, at least from our point of view right now. He's trying to teach her how to do all these things, and as she progresses and does well, he gives her tattoos, which I thought was kind of weird. But like when she killed her first deer, that's how she got the deer tattoo on her neck up here. You can see on my picture. But there's a whole bunch of different things that, if she accomplished this, then she got the tattoo to remind herself of, good things she did and also bad things too. Because like when she was hunting and she missed her shot, he gave her a tattoo that reminds her that she missed the shot, which I think is a little overkill. That's probably the beginning of, seeing his bad side. But the movie progresses where eventually the dad says, I'm going to go off on this trip and I have to do it alone. And so Helena and her mom stay behind in the cabin, and somebody approaches the house on a four-wheeler saying that they're lost and they need some help, finding their way back to the main road. And basically Helena's mom sees this as the way to get out of there, like out of the cabin, out of the woods, out of that lifestyle. Like she like completely changed, like flips her personality. It's no longer calm and collected. It is frantic and desperate. And so she tries to get on the quad, tries to get it going, says, we got to get out of here. And the guy's like, what the heck? I just asked you about how to get back to the trail and you didn't say anything. So how would I know? And basically enough time passes where the dad shows up, and he ends up killing the guy that shows up to their house. But the mom and Helena do take off on the four-wheeler and head towards civilization, so to speak. They head to a police station. Helena actually doesn't want to leave in the first place, and the mom, knocks her out with a rock. I thought that was pretty crazy, because Helena wakes up in the police station. And so she wakes up, she's like, where's my mom? Where's my dad? She wants to go back to her house, and we get our first little introduction to this police officer that plays a bigger role down the road. But basically, she is allowed out of her room to go see her mom, and then she's put into a separate room because she's, trying to break things and like get out of the police station by kicking the doors and whatnot. And she eventually goes into a room by herself and goes out the window. Who didn't lock that window? I don't know. But she goes out the window, and her dad is actually waiting for her in an alley. And so the dad is like, we're going to go, we're going to live our lives. It's going to be great. Well, when they get to the end of the alley, they get surrounded by cops. And then it basically cuts to older Helena. The dad is now in jail, and then she is living her normal life. She has a daughter named Marigold, and she has a husband. I think she works. I think they said she works at a college, but it looks like she was doing like off.
I think he works at a college and she's just like an accountant or something.
Oh, okay. I thought they said she was. That makes more sense because I was like, she types in numbers. She's not teaching anybody, so I don't know. So she's living her normal life, but eventually we find out that her dad escapes from prison, and so she's very anxious about the fact that her dad may show up back on her doorstep somehow. He's a very good tracker, so he knows how to figure these things out, so to speak. And so there's a whole bunch of different times where Helena thinks she's seeing her dad. We learn when she's younger that there's like this little whistle tune that they do to let them know that they're there together, and like she's at a swap meet type thing, and she hears the whistle tones go off, and she sees someone that kind of looks like her dad, but it's not. We're also led to believe that her dad is dead because the people that helped him escape from prison, so he escapes out of a van because he was being transported between prisons, but then he meets up with somebody that's kind of the getaway car, and so that getaway car crashes and burns. And the reason why the police believe that he was dead is because there was these teeth that were at the scene of the crime. They were gold teeth. However, when they were young, when Helena was younger and we saw his teeth were silver. So I kind of wondered something might be going on here. So
it seems very suspicious that they said the car crashed and burned and that the bodies were beyond recognizable from the burns, except for the teeth. Well, that sounds pretty suspicious.
Right. And even that, like, how could you know I know that the teeth would be an indicator, but I mean, if they're burnt to be unrecognizable, it could have been anybody that had those teeth, So the police and everybody think that he's dead, whereas Helena's like, no, there's no way that he's dead. There's something going on still. And so she's having like nightmares about him. She even sets up like a little bell system around her house so that if something trips the wire, it'll ring the bell. So she's like super, super anxious about, again, seeing her dad. And so basically what this movie turns into is, she finally gives in because she's told nobody about her past, even her husband. And her husband was pretty distraught when he found out, that she had a past that he didn't know about. And so she finally just like unloads to him about her past and then decides that she has to deal with her past. And then she ends up going back to her old home. We actually find out that the cop that she was talking with in the beginning of the film at the police station, he's actually the person that raised her. He was her father figure in her like teenager, young adult years. And when she goes out to the house, apparently he heard about, that she might be meeting up with her dad. And so he goes out there too. He's not quite there yet. But when she goes out to the house, her dad does show up, and then they kind of have some talking moments where they're trying to have an understanding between one another. But when she goes back to the house to kind of, get ready to leave, so to speak, that's when the cop shows up, her stepfather figure. And her actual dad sees that he's there and then basically determines that Helena was trying to set him up. And so he shoots the officer, and now it's a fight or flight scenario for Helena. And she doesn't do super well here. He's able to like handcuff her and pull her by the hair to take her different places and stuff. She's not doing super hot against her dad in this whole altercation. Um, he's dragging her because he's taking her to this like hole in the ground. It's pretty deep. We actually learn here that when she would make mistakes back in her younger days, she was thrown into this hole as well. And so he throws her into the hole. She basically determines, well, I'm big enough now where I can, shimmy my way up to the top, break the thing that's up top that's keeping me in. It's like a bamboo type, like sticks put together and then rocks on top of it. She finds a way to break that and then get out. And then she goes hunting her dad.
Well, because his ultimate goal is to bring her and her daughter, which is his granddaughter, to
Right.
Canada so they can live in the woods like one happy family again. Whereas Helena doesn't want that. She wants to just live a normal life. So once she realizes that he's going after her daughter, that's why she's going to try to stop him.
Right. Um, and this is also pretty interesting. So she's trying to track him with the way that he taught her. And so because he knows she's using the skills that he taught her, he tries to like flip the script a little bit and try to make it so she can't predict what he's doing. So this is kind of at the moment where she's like walking through the marsh and with her gun, and he's hiding in the mud. And so he pops out of the mud, pops her in the leg, purposely doesn't kill her because he doesn't want to. Again, Sarah said, he has his own goals and ambitions that he wants to accomplish here. And so he takes her up the hill in the process of going back to the house. At least I think they're going back to the house. Oh no, they're trying to find the boat that she brought to the cabin. And while they're up there, they're on a very tall cliff, and she fake trips in a way where she's hanging off the edge, and because she knows he's going to help her. And when he goes to help her, she pulls him over the edge to try to kill him. Neither one of them die from this fall, but they are pretty badly hurt. But ultimately, basically, when she regains, I don't know if she ever lost consciousness, but like full, what would you call that? She's aware. She got full awareness back of what was going on. She found a gun and then killed her dad. Because basically, even though I feel like she was willing to give him some chances there in the beginning, basically he was proving to her that no, things are going to be like they were in the past. Your family, you and your daughter are going to be my family, and we're going to do what we did before. And so she knew that's not what she wanted for her family, so she ended up killing him.
Major power struggle.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty interesting of her to, give him a chance. It's I would
What do you mean
say
by that?
I would say not everybody would give him a chance. If
What chance does she give?
she didn't kill him right away. There was a whole segment, like if that cop hadn't shown up, part of me believes that she wouldn't have killed him.
Oh, no, I think she was just trying to say, leave me alone.
Right. So she was giving she went there to clear her, side of things so that she can go home and be able to sleep at night because she was having nightmares and whatnot. She was going there to talk to her dad, get things squared away. That way she could go back to her normal life. And because he was showing that, that's not how it's going to be, that's what pushed her over the edge to actually, kill him. That's what I mean. Like, I didn't think she had full intention to kill him. She did take a weapon, like a knife and stuff, but she brought that for in case she needed it. It wasn't, I'm going to use it, so to speak. But the rest of the film was her going in the boat and heading back towards home. And that was it. There's a handful of things that I kind of glazed over as far as like, when she was younger. We see a lot of, like I said, her growing up with her dad. Things seem pretty good. But I think it was during the discussion with her dad at the end when she was starting to piece together that her dad wasn't exactly who she remembered him being. She was starting to interpret previous scenarios in a different way. So, for example, there was a scene where when Helena was young, she was looking off to the water where it kind of looked like her mom had like slipped in the water, and it appeared that the dad was, helping her up to stand up in the water. But later on, we find out that what was really happening was the dad was mad at the wife. And so he was like basically drowning her in a way. He wasn't trying to kill her, but he was trying to scare her with that tactic. And so we start to see that us as an audience start to see from her point of view, he's not this guy that she believed him to be. He actually was really bad, and we can actually understand why the mom was so, we need to get out of here, when she flipped that switch earlier on in the film. So yeah, that was the film.
So some of the things that I thought were not super believable, or maybe we could have seen some from his point of view, is okay, so there's two different things that come to mind, right? One is one of the scenes where Helena realizes that her dad is kind of back in her life, even though everybody thinks he's dead, is that her kid has this like shoebox fake habitat for a little toy deer that she made at school, and she sees these like stick dolls in there that reminded her of dolls from when she was a kid, that obviously had come from him because her daughter's never seen dolls like that and wouldn't know how to make dolls like that. But we just seen like how much she locked everything in the house up, so I don't understand how those dolls made it into the kid's bedroom. It's kind of weird and a little bit of a stretch, and it's kind of one of those things of like, I guess I'll just take it and move on. But the other thing
Can I talk to that?
is,
I want to talk to that point. The way that I kind of interpreted that was, again, he's supposed to be like a master huntsman, and
but that's the outdoors, not breaking into a house.
not done yet. He talked about, because when she was trying to shoot the deer and the deer got away, and she was like, oh, like must have smelled me or something. You know, I feel like he is so aware of, being able to sneak up on things and whatnot, that I think he must have had some sort of plan to be able to do all that. We don't, again, we don't know what his life was before the woods. So maybe there was some stuff there too. But ultimately, my interpretation is just that he was so good at being a huntsman.
Yeah, that doesn't tell me how he broke into a house and then magically was able to lock it up again from the outside so it looked like he had never broken in. But that's kind of my point, I guess, is you're making an assumption, and I wish we would have seen something about it, because I feel like that would have added to kind of the scary intenseness of the film.
I think it did, because at that point, it was not really confirmed yet that he was actually dead. So this is the part of the movie where I was wondering, is this all in her head? Is he dead and she's just being psyched out and she's kind of dealing with her trauma? Or is he actually alive? And so by not showing that it was him, I think that added to the what is really going on here. Is it being made up, or is it actually something going on? I know that there was the physical dolls that were there, but
To that point, the car crash and the people burned beyond recognition and the teeth, also that must be him. That was so obvious to me. And I haven't read the book, but it was so obvious to me that clearly it wasn't him, because the person that helped them get away is the one who's still on the loose. I'm like, no, he's not. It's the dad. There, it's too easy for me to guess.
I saw the difference in the teeth too, and right away I had thought there's no way that was him.
I didn't even notice the difference in the teeth. That didn't matter. That just the storyline of burned beyond recognition, so the teeth must mean it's him. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, I will say that assumption was a bit overboard. That could pull you out of the film, but
I'm like, do a blood test then. You can't tell me all his blood's gone. It'd take all of like 30 seconds.
Unrecognizable, Sarah.
It doesn't mean there's no blood left.
They were Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen with grills.
So his death being too obvious, and then his tracking later being not obvious enough. I wish we would have seen some from his point of view because it was too obvious to me that he was still alive. I believed her. The other thing that I wish we would have seen some of that kind of seemed weird or random is okay, so the cabin is located in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So it's across the Mackinac Bridge if you are on the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. She lives in the Lower Peninsula. So for you to be that far off of civilization in the Upper Peninsula, she's living, we're going to say somewhere around 4 to 7 hours away from this place. And that's just a guess. I don't know exactly how far her house was from the cabin she grew up in, but it's somewhere in that realm. Let's just say it's 4 hours because it's shorter, so it wouldn't take her as long to get there. Just for the sake of moving on. He left all these signs at her house just under the assumption that that meant she would go back to the cabin because magically when she went there, he was already there. He had already been there. It wasn't that he tracked her there because he was there before she got there. So it just what made him think that she'd be there, that he went there in the first place? How did he even get there? Did he steal a car? Because that's kind of weird to not be like in the news or anything when there's this manhunt for the accomplice that helped him get away, even if they think he's dead. It's just, I feel like there's too many loose ends with that sure, I can just glaze over it and take it for what it is and okay, move on. But those are the types of things that made this movie go from like a 9 down to a 7. It's like, okay, I guess.
That's exactly how I feel about that statement. Okay, I guess. Just because, it really depends on where you are. Like, if this cabin was like way up in the Upper Peninsula, then of course it's going to be hours to get there from the Lower Peninsula. But let's say they're just like one of them is 15 minutes north of the bridge and one of them is 15 minutes south of the bridge. Driving doesn't take very long. Walking kind of would, but the driving wouldn't. So I don't know. I think we're making the assumption on how far apart the two places are.
She also had a very lengthy kayak ride to get to the cabin, too.
She did.
But
I would agree with you, though, that I do think that, looking back on it, that seems kind of odd that those things would line up the way they did. But I don't know.
I'm just going to chalk it up to he's such a great outdoorsman, he knew that she'd go there, and so he went there first.
I'm glad you're finally seeing it. Trying to
And
see
who knows, maybe those are things that are explained better in the book. I have no idea.
It could be. You should have asked the ladies next to you. Hey, how'd that guy get there before? I thought it was kind of interesting when he broke out of the van that was, transporting him. It gave me like Halloween vibes, when Michael Myers broke out of the vehicle. I was like, is he gonna be stalking her the rest of the film, like killing a couple of people along the way? Is this like, a literature or I shouldn't say literature version. Is this a non-horror version of a Michael Myers story? But it wasn't. It was all right. But I would say the amount of character development that they set up early on with the father-daughter relationship really made me wonder what was wrong with the relationship. And I think that was the best part of the movie because it's what kind of kept me wondering what's going to happen next. Because we keep hearing all these bad things about, the dad, but we really haven't seen what is wrong with the dad, aside from the fact that he shot somebody.
Well, and because you're in the viewpoint of the kid's going to see what she wants to believe, and it's whatever the dad is making her see and making her believe, to the point where he made her think that her mom was the one where there's something wrong with her, and it's Yeah, I just the twist of seeing it from the kid's point of view and then how she interpreted that stuff later as an adult and the adjustment of being back in normal society. I think that's what made this a stronger film for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that was one of the best parts was, like you said, seeing it from the child's point of view, or basically taking it as the child's point of view until we grow with the character herself, to, realizing all these different things. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about for the Marsh King's Daughter?
Overall, I thought it was a pretty good film. I would say it's worth seeing.
I would say so too, even if you haven't read the book. So that was our discussion on the Marsh King's Daughter. We both recommend seeing it. Both of us gave it a 7 out of 10. And hopefully some of our points will help you kind of understand where we were with those numbers. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you are notified when more of these drop. We got a whole bunch of movies we're seeing in the month of November, so stay tuned. Drop us a like if you like the video, and drop us a comment letting us know if you're going to see Marsh King's Daughter and what your thoughts are on the film. And if you like, drop us some things in the like if you've seen the movie and you've read the book, let us know some of the things in the comments about, maybe differences or things that the book may have done better, because I'm definitely interested in hearing the cliff notes. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.